The moment I walked out of the bathroom, they were already dancing. Not just dancing, they were lost in each other. Her back was arched just slightly, her fingers gently resting on his shoulder like she'd done this 100 times before. His hand wasn't on her lower back, it was lower. Everyone saw it, and no one said a word. The music swelled, some elegant jazz cover of a pop song I'd normally hate. But in that moment, all I heard was static. It was like walking into a movie where the audience knew the ending, but I didn't. And I hated being the idiot in the room. I stood there, holding a paper plate of tiny cheesecakes and thinking, what the hell is happening right now? A few hours earlier, we were fighting over what shoes she should wear. The shoes. I can't wear these with the purple dress, she said, holding up the black heels she's worn maybe twice. They make me look like I'm trying too hard. I didn't know shoes could even do that. You'll look great in whatever, I muttered, already regretting everything. I was standing there in a wrinkled shirt, trying to scrub an invisible stain off the collar while she was triple-checking her lipstick shade against the hallway mirror. She changed her outfit 3 times, each one more unlike her than the last. I said nothing. The dress she finally settled on. I'd never seen it before. Tight, shimmery, dangerous. I asked, new? She didn't answer, just said, ready, and grabbed her coat. The ballroom. The venue was over the top for a company party. Chandeliers. An ice sculpture in the shape of the company's logo. Waiters with gloves. And a DJ who looked like he belonged in a Calvin Klein ad. We weren't even 5 minutes in when she drifted off to greet coworkers. I lost track of her somewhere between the open bar and a table covered in sushi. I was talking to someone about 401(k)s and how they don't make sense anymore when I excused myself to use the restroom. Quick. In and out. And then, that dance. That damn dance. I stood there like a joke. Nobody else cared. Her coworkers smiled. Whispered. Toasted. The boss? Terrell, I think his name was. Wearing a blue velvet blazer like he invented wealth. He twirled her like he owned her. And she let him. Then someone bumped into me. A woman I'd never met before. Blonde. Short hair. Sharp jaw. Looked like she ate CEOs for breakfast. She looked at me, looked at the dance floor, then back at me. That your wife? She asked. I nodded. She snorted. She's not coming back to you tonight. I didn't sleep. I didn't confront. Not yet. But what happened after that dance was so much worse than I ever expected. I didn't confront her after the dance. I didn't even speak. I just watched her glide off the floor like nothing happened, laughing with 2 women I didn't recognize. Her cheeks were flushed, not from alcohol, she hadn't had a drop, but from adrenaline. That specific type of glow you get when you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, and the thrill of almost being caught adds to the high. She didn't come back to me. Not after the first dance. Not after the second. In fact, I didn't see her again until nearly an hour later, when I was sitting at one of the back tables pretending to scroll my phone, refreshing the same email inbox I'd already cleared twice. When she finally walked up, she was holding a small plate of chocolate-covered strawberries and acting like everything was normal. No apology. No explanation. No acknowledgement of the 3 dances with the boss whose cologne was still clinging to her sleeve. I brought you something, she said, placing the plate in front of me like we were back home on a Sunday night, not at a fancy resort ballroom where I'd just been publicly replaced. I stared at the strawberries, then at her, and quietly asked, where did you get that dress? She blinked, like the question had come out of nowhere. What? That dress, I repeated. I've never seen it before. She hesitated. Not long, just enough to register. Then, oh, I bought it last week. With Marla. The name landed heavy. Marla. The same woman who'd danced with me earlier. The one who dragged me out onto the floor with a devilish grin and whispered, your wife's not the only one who likes to be noticed. I nodded, pretending to accept the answer. But something was already unraveling inside me. Because Becca hadn't mentioned Marla in months. Something didn't add up. Back at our room, things got colder. Not literally. The fireplace was humming, the bed was turned down, and room service had left 2 heart-shaped chocolates on the pillows. But the space between us? Arctic. She took her makeup off in silence. I brushed my teeth staring at my own reflection like a man trying to figure out when, exactly, he stopped being a priority. We climbed into bed without a word. She rolled away. I stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep that night either. At 3:13 a.m., I unlocked her phone. I know. I'm not proud. I'd never done it before. I didn't even know her passcode until earlier that day when she used it to check the weather. But I couldn't shake it. Something was off. Something about the dress, the sudden distance, her boss, Marla's smirk. I had to know. So I opened her texts. The thread. She had a thread with T. Just the letter. Nothing else. Not Terrell, not Mr. Westfield, like I'd heard someone call him earlier. Just T. The last message was from him. 2 hours ago. T. I can still smell you on me. That was it. One line. Chillingly casual. I scrolled up. And the further I went, the worse it got. Hidden photos. Inside jokes. Dinner plans I'd never heard about. One message from last Thursday said, T. You sure he's not suspicious? And her reply? Becca, Elmer? Please. He's still worried about how to fix the dishwasher. I stopped breathing. I must have sat there, phone in hand, screen burning my eyes, for a solid 10 minutes before I set it down like it was radioactive. I didn't wake her. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. Instead, I got up, walked to the balcony, and stood barefoot in the cold mountain air until my toes went numb. What do you do when you realize you've been turned into the punchline of your own marriage? What do you do when the person you trusted the most uses your name as a joke? I didn't have answers, but I was about to find some. And what I found next made everything worse. The sun came up like it didn't care that my world had cracked open overnight. Light spilled across the room like a spotlight on failure. Becca was still asleep, curled away from me, breathing softly like nothing had shifted, like she hadn't become someone I couldn't recognize in less than 24 hours. I didn't speak to her that morning. Didn't even pretend. I showered silently, dressed quickly, and left our room without breakfast. I took a walk down the trail behind the lodge. No plan, no direction, just movement. The forest was damp and quiet. Trees stretched above me like guards, and for a moment I thought, if I just kept walking, how far could I get before anyone noticed I was gone? I made it about half a mile before I stopped. Sat on a bench overlooking a small pond that smelled like old leaves and silence. I was trying to make sense of it all. The messages, the lies, the man with the velvet blazer and the gold-rimmed smirk. I can still smell you on me. How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? That's when it hit me. I wasn't just the guy she cheated on. I was the guy she brought with her to the same hotel where it was happening. Like a prop. Like background furniture. And what's worse, she didn't even bother to hide it well. I pulled out my phone and stared at it. I thought about texting her. I thought about confronting her calmly, explosively, tearfully. I imagined every version of the speech. But nothing sounded real. Nothing could match the weight of what I felt. So I did what I always do when I'm spiraling. I turned to distraction. And that's when I remembered Marla. Marla's warning. She wasn't just flirting the night before. I see that now. She wasn't making a move on me. She was sending a warning. Women have a way of communicating that bypasses politeness when they see something broken. Her line still echoed in my head. She's not coming back to you tonight. I remembered the way she said it. Not cruel. Not even gloating. Just factual. I opened Facebook. Yes, I still use Facebook. Don't judge me. And searched Marla. I found her in Becca's friends list. Third photo down, she was tagged at a winery. Her profile was public. And messy. Quotes about betrayal. A status that said karma doesn't miss twice. A photo with a glass of wine captioned, I warned you, sis. It didn't make sense. None of it did. So I did the most awkward, desperate thing I've ever done. I messaged her. Me. Hey Marla, it's Elmer, Becca's husband. Sorry if this is weird, but I think something's going on. Can we talk? She saw it within minutes. Then replied, Marla, I've been waiting for this message since October. The meeting. We met in the Lodge Cafe 2 hours later. She wore oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that said, No one's therapist, which felt fitting. She didn't hug me, didn't smile, just sat down, ordered black coffee, and said, So, you found out. I nodded. I didn't even know where to start. She filled in the blanks like she'd rehearsed it. Said she used to be Becca's closest work friend. Said she started suspecting something back in the summer when Becca's, working late, turned into overnight business trips with vague itineraries. Said Terrell, or T, as he was known to his inner circle, had a history. Slept with his last executive assistant, too. That woman ended up transferring to a different office in Portland to escape the humiliation. But the worst part? They're not just hooking up, Marla said. They're planning something. She's angling for a promotion. Head of campaign strategy. She's using this as leverage. I stared at her, stunned. So I'm not just being cheated on. I'm being used as a human cover story? Marla winced. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but yes. You're here, so she looks clean. I felt like I was underwater. The world muffled, distant, unreal. Everything came rushing together. The new dress, the laughing, the cold distance in bed. The way she told me I was embarrassing myself. She didn't love me anymore. Worse, she didn't even respect me. I think, Marla. I think. Honestly, I barely remember walking out. I went back to the room and found Becca standing by the window, phone in hand, a coffee she hadn't touched sitting on the desk. She smiled when she saw me. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but like she had no idea I had just watched the bottom fall out of our life. You disappeared, she said. I was getting worried. And I just stood there, watching her lie like it was nothing. What came next wasn't planned, but it changed everything. She turned toward me, still holding her phone, still smiling, and I realized in that moment that the woman I married was gone. Or maybe she'd been gone longer than I'd noticed. Maybe I'd been clinging to the shadow of someone who had already stepped away, quietly, piece by piece, until nothing was left but her shape and the stories I told myself about us. I was getting worried, she said again, slower this time, like I hadn't heard her. I think she expected me to apologize, for disappearing, for not texting, for making her coffee grow cold. I wondered how many times she'd used that exact tone with someone else. How many other lies she'd sprinkled on top of burned trust, and told herself it was still edible. I talked to Marla, I said, and I swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. Just slightly. Barely there. But it was the first real emotion I'd seen from her in 2 days. She placed her phone down, carefully, like setting a trap. What did she say? I stepped forward, not threatening, just deliberate. She told me everything. About tea. About your little promotion game. About how I'm just here to keep you looking innocent while you sleep with your boss. The silence after that didn't stretch, it snapped. Loud and immediate. Her whole body stiffened, and for 1 second I thought she might deny it. Tell me Marla was lying. That this was all a mistake, a misunderstanding, that she and Terrell were just close because of work. But she didn't deny it. She sighed, rolled her eyes, sat down on the bed. Then, in the flattest tone I've ever heard her use, said, "So what now?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, nothing was funny, but because that was her response. Not shock, not tears, not even a weak apology. Just a lazy, bored question like we were talking about ordering room service or switching hotels. What now? I repeated louder. You asked me what now after dragging me to a corporate retreat just to parade your affair around like it was part of the entertainment package. She picked at a loose thread on the comforter. You're being dramatic. I blinked. Dramatic? She finally looked up. Elmer, come on. You knew things were off. Don't act like this came out of nowhere. We haven't been okay for over a year. You don't work. You're in your head all the time. You haven't touched me in weeks. You haven't even looked at me in weeks. I snapped back. Don't pin this on me. You didn't ask me to dance, she muttered. That line broke something inside me. I did. You just said you promised it to Terrell. She shrugged. It was 1 dance. No, it was 3. And let's be honest, that wasn't the only thing you promised him. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Her face froze, and for once, she didn't have a comeback. I walked toward the dresser and started grabbing my things. Socks, charger, cologne I didn't wear but brought just in case. She stood up quickly. What are you doing? Packing. You're not serious. Oh, I'm very serious. Elmer. No. You don't get to say my name like that. Not anymore. She reached for my arm, and I pulled away. The gesture wasn't aggressive, but it was firm. Final. The same way you push away a door that's closing for the last time. I came here hoping this trip might save us, I said quietly. But it turns out it just showed me exactly what we are now. And what we aren't. She didn't speak. Didn't stop me. Didn't say a word as I zipped my bag and walked out of that room. But just before I closed the door behind me, I heard it. Her voice, barely above a whisper. I didn't think you'd actually leave. And that's the part one can't stop replaying. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Not even the texts. That moment. The shock in her voice. Like she truly believed she could do all this and I would still stay. Because that's what I've always done. Until now. But the story isn't over. Not even close. Because what I found on her iPad, left logged in, like a final insult, made everything worse. I didn't go far after I left the room. I told myself I'd leave the lodge entirely, maybe find a cheap motel down the mountain or sleep in the car if I had to. But instead, I sat in the hallway for 20 minutes with my bag between my legs and my thoughts clawing at each other. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't figure out how to mourn something that hadn't officially died, but had clearly been rotting for a long time. Eventually, I got up and made my way to the business lounge, a warm, empty corner of the resort that no one actually used except for charging phones or pretending to answer emails. I sat at a desk facing the window. The forest looked peaceful in a way that mocked me. There was a small coffee bar. I poured myself something bitter and sat in silence, trying to make sense of the last 24 hours. And then I saw it. Someone had left a tablet on the table across from mine. Unlocked. The case was bright yellow. I recognized it instantly. Becca's iPad. She used it for work presentations and Pinterest scrolling, and occasionally to show me ads for patio furniture we couldn't afford. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was that part of me that still wanted to be sure, even though I'd already read enough messages to justify walking out forever. I picked it up, expecting to find the home screen. Instead, it opened straight into an email. And not just any email. The promotion pitch. It was a draft. A long, polished, carefully written proposal addressed to Terrell. Subject line, follow-up, position strategy plus leverage notes. There were bullet points, timelines, attachments. But what turned my blood cold was the paragraph near the top. With the rollout of the campaign changes and the optics of a stable marriage, the transition to a more visible role should be seamless. Bringing Elmer to the retreat was intentional. It softens perception, especially among the board. No loose ends. No loose ends. That was how she described me. A loose end that needed managing. Not a husband. Not a person with a heartbeat and a memory of our first anniversary in a leaky cabin in Maine. Just a variable in a larger performance. I sat there stunned, rereading it again and again, thinking maybe I was misunderstanding, that I was reading it out of context. But the further I scrolled, the worse it got. She laid out her entire plan, framing the affair as mentorship, presenting herself as eager to step up into a broader leadership role while maintaining personal integrity optics, even including notes on how to handle me if I became reactive. Reactive. They were planning for my meltdown like I was a toddler at a restaurant. It wasn't just betrayal. It was strategic. It was rehearsed. It was corporate. Collateral damage. I kept digging. Opened her notes app. Dozens of entries. Some were harmless. Grocery lists, half-finished recipes, workout plans she never used. But buried between the rest was one note that made me physically flinch. It was titled simply, Exit Plan. I tapped it open, expecting, honestly, I didn't know what I expected. Divorce steps? Resignation letters? Some to-do list for ending the affair? Instead, it was bullet points. Cold. Itemized. Like a product launch. Separate finances without triggering suspicion. Shift emotional narrative gradually, he won't notice. Leverage work travel to normalize distance. Reconnect after promotion, or not. Do not mention therapy. Not worth the emotional labor. Keep mom out of it. She still likes him. Use Asheville retreat as final test of control. Final test of control. I read it 4 times, thinking maybe that wasn't what she meant. But it was exactly what she meant. This trip wasn't a chance to fix us. It was an experiment. A test to see if I would stay quiet, play nice, smile at the right people, and make her look like a woman with a beautiful, stable home life. And I did. God help me, I did. I wore the damn shirt she picked. I complimented her in front of her coworkers. I stood in a corner and watched her dance with another man, thinking I was being a supportive spouse. But I was just part of a presentation. A living prop. The shallow end of her love. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I left the iPad where I found it, face down, open to the draft, like a smoking gun still hot from the shot. Then I walked. Not out of the building. Not into the woods. Back to our room. I opened the door slowly. She was on the bed, scrolling her phone, legs tucked up under a blanket like it was just another slow afternoon. She looked up. Hey, I was wondering. Don't. My voice surprised even me. Flat. Hollow. But final. She put the phone down. Don't what? I saw the email. A pause. Then a flicker in her eyes, the smallest pulse of tension, and she said, What email? The one where you called me a loose end. Her breath caught. Just slightly. Enough for me to see the truth before she said a word. Elmer. No, I interrupted. Don't soften it. Don't wrap it in excuses or say it's not what I think. I saw the whole plan. The optics. The leverage. The exit strategy. All of it. I wasn't your husband this weekend. I was your PR stunt. She didn't defend it. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me like I was making things difficult. You were never supposed to find that, she whispered. And I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it proved everything. There was something strangely calm about the moment she said it. You were never supposed to find that. Not defensive, not tearful, not even guilty. Just matter of fact. Like someone who left the oven on but figured the house wouldn't burn down. Like I'd simply peeked behind the curtain too early and spoiled the show. I didn't respond right away. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have, letting the silence stretch. I think I wanted her to break it. To fill the room with some kind of human sound. A groan, a gasp, a clumsy apology. Anything that might remind me she was still capable of regret. But she stayed quiet, watching me, waiting to see what version of myself I'd become now that the act was over. I stepped inside, slowly, as if crossing some invisible barrier. I sat down in the chair by the window, the one she used when she took late-night calls, and whispered just a little too quietly. My hands were shaking, but not from rage. No, this wasn't rage. This was the clarity that comes after too many lies. A strange stillness, like the moment after an explosion when all the dust hasn't settled yet. I always thought, I began, carefully, that if something like this happened, I'd scream, break something, burn the place down. She didn't speak. But it turns out, I continued, the quieter the betrayal, the quieter the aftermath. She looked away, just for a second, toward the mirror. I wondered if she was avoiding my eyes or checking her own reflection. I'm not here to fight with you, I said. I'm not even here to ask why. I already know. You outgrew me. You replaced love with strategy. And somewhere along the way, I became inconvenient. That's not, she started, but her voice caught. Just slightly. Just enough to let me know I'd said something close to true. It's okay, I said. Really, you don't have to dress it up for me. I saw the notes. The bullet points. The part where you said reconnecting after the promotion was optional. I mean, I wasn't even part of the endgame, was I? She looked down. No, she admitted. You weren't. The plan that wasn't hers alone. I leaned back in the chair, letting that settle. It felt heavier than I thought it would. Not the words, but the way she said them. No venom. No regret. Just confirmation. Did he help you write it? I asked. That got her attention. She frowned. Who? Terrell. She hesitated. Then, some of it. I nodded. Makes sense. It read like something written by two people who think feelings are just liabilities. Elmer, did you ever love me? I asked, not accusing, just curious. That seemed to hit a nerve. Her lips parted like she wanted to say yes, but no sound came out. Instead, she stood up and crossed to the minibar, poured herself a glass of water, took a sip, and still said nothing. It was all the answer I needed. Rebuilding, in the rubble. When she turned around, I was already pulling my laptop out of my bag. What are you doing? She asked. Emailing your HR department, I said, without looking up. Her eyes widened, and I saw something flash across her face. Not panic. No, Becca didn't panic, but concern. The kind of concern that meant I'd disrupted the order of operations. Elmer, wait. I paused. Now you want to talk? She walked toward me, suddenly softer. Please don't make this messy. I looked up at her. You wrote a leverage strategy involving your boss. You used your marriage as a human shield. You mapped out my emotional reaction like I was a test subject. And you're worried I'll make it messy? Her expression shifted again, wounded, defensive, irritated. So many layers. But underneath all of them, I saw the real problem. I was supposed to collapse. I was supposed to leave quietly, maybe cry, maybe disappear into therapy and Instagram quotes about healing. I was not supposed to weaponize what I knew. I was not supposed to become the version of myself that scared her, the version that paid attention. I closed the laptop slowly. Don't worry, I said. I'm not blowing anything up. Yet. Her shoulders eased, too quickly. But I am documenting everything. The messages, the emails, the draft, the exit plan. I've already exported the files and backed them up in 3 places. Her jaw clenched. And I'm not going to HR. I'm going to legal. Not for revenge, for self-defense. You plan to make me collateral. I'm just making sure you can't. The final shift. She didn't cry. I don't know if I expected her to. Maybe part of me hoped that beneath the ambition, the calculation, there was still a piece of her that would crack when faced with the reality of what she'd done. But there was nothing. Just silence. The sound of a machine recalculating. I stood up. This marriage is done. But how we end it, that's still being written. And then I walked out of the room again. But this time, I didn't look back. Because this time, I had the power. And I wasn't finished yet. The first thing I did after leaving the room wasn't call a lawyer or book a flight. I sat on a bench near the loading dock behind the resort's conference hall and watched the staff take out the trash. Giant black bags filled with discarded wine bottles, name tags, and glittery remnants of whatever fragile magic these company retreats were supposed to create. It hit me then. How much effort had gone into making everything look polished from the outside, while the inside was bloated with rot. Not just my marriage. Everything. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder I'd labeled simply, Insurance. Inside were screenshots of the email drafts, photos of her notes, the text threads with Terrell, and a voice memo I'd recorded during her non-confession. That last one was tricky, recorded during our final conversation in the room, while my phone sat screen down on the nightstand. I hadn't planned to use it, but something told me to capture it, just in case. She thought I would burn out quickly, that I'd rage for a day, maybe two, and then sink back into the background like a bad habit she was trying to quit. But something had snapped in me, not broken, shifted. I wasn't playing the part she wrote for me anymore. And I had time. The retreat didn't end until Sunday evening. That gave me almost 3 full days. Plenty of time. The first move, a toast. That night, there was a closing dinner scheduled in the main ballroom. Cocktail attire. Candlelit tables. Fake awards. I hadn't planned to attend, but then it occurred to me. We're better to start undoing the illusion than the place where it had been performed. I showed up in the same suit I wore to her cousin's wedding. The one she said made me look almost interesting. It still fit, barely. My collar was too tight. But I looked clean, calm, like someone who belonged. She didn't see me at first. Terrell did. He clocked me from across the room, smiled politely, and then looked away, as if I were harmless. Perfect. Dinner dragged. Speeches, laughter, fake applause. When they called her up for a recognition award, most promising strategic lead, I didn't clap. I just watched. She smiled like she earned it, like she wasn't kneeling on a throne made of deception. Then, when the MC asked if anyone wanted to offer a toast to the people behind the team, I stood. People noticed. Becca froze. Terrell narrowed his eyes. But I raised my glass and smiled like a man who had nothing left to lose. I just wanted to say a quick thank you. I began. To all of you. I didn't work on this campaign, obviously, but I got to live very close to the people who did. In fact, I was lucky enough to be used in several of the campaign's most important strategies, some even personal. There were laughs. Nervous ones. Terrell shifted. Becca stared, smile tight. I kept going. Behind every great woman is a man she brings to networking events to appear more relatable. That's me. I was the set dressing, the accessory that completed the image of stability. The laugh stopped. Becca's eyes widened. I won't take up much time. Just wanted to say it's been fascinating watching how far some people will go for a title, and how much they'll trade for it. Then I sat down. No one clapped. And I didn't care. The second move, quiet power. I didn't talk to Becca that night. I didn't have to. The seed was planted. In every whisper, every side glance, I saw it grow. She didn't come back to our room. Didn't text. I imagined her pacing, trying to guess how much I'd revealed, if I'd shown anything, or just rattled the cage. But I wasn't finished. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with one of her firm's senior partners. I introduced myself as Becca's husband and requested a private conversation. I didn't mention affairs. I didn't mention emails. I simply said, there's some documentation I've come across that suggests potential boundary violations between your team's leadership and one of your marketing leads. I thought it was worth flagging. I slid a flash drive across the table. Didn't even stay to watch him open it. The final warning. By noon, I had a message from Becca. The first since our last conversation. Becca, what did you do? I didn't respond. At 2:15 p.m., Terrell was seen leaving the resort early. At 3:22, I overheard a coordinator mention internal HR chaos. By 5:40, her name was missing from the dinner program. I never said a word to anyone else. Didn't need to. She built her entire platform on performance. But when you pull one light from the stage, the shadows spread fast. No shouting, no scandal, just pressure. Quiet, deliberate pressure. And now? Now it was her turn to spiral. I stayed one final night at the resort. Not because I had to, not because I wanted to, but because I'd earned it. I took the suite, the one she originally upgraded to for both of us, and watched the sun set from the balcony alone. I ordered dinner, not to the room, but to the fire pit area outside, where I ate grilled salmon and vegetables under string lights with a warm breeze brushing past me. No one recognized me. No one came over. And for the first time in what felt like months, I wasn't invisible. I was free. The last conversation. Becca didn't call. She showed up, unannounced, late at night, while I was packing. Hair up, no makeup, expression unreadable. She didn't knock right away, just stood at the door like she was still deciding whether she had the right to speak to me. Eventually, she tapped twice. I opened it. She looked different, smaller, like someone who had finally run out of scripts. "Can I come in?" she asked. I let her, not because I needed to, because I wanted to look her in the eye, one last time, without flinching. She stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed like armor, then finally said, "I lost the promotion." I didn't respond. And HR has launched an investigation. Terrell's gone silent. Still nothing. "I didn't think it would go this way," she added quietly. "No," I said calmly. "You thought you could manage me." She looked down. I deserved that. There was a long silence. And then, the words I'd never expected. "I'm sorry, Elmer." No excuses. No attempts to soften the edges. Just those 3 words. I believed her. But that didn't mean I forgave her. Closure isn't a door, it's a window. "I don't hate you," I told her. "But we can't go back." She nodded, slowly. She paused. "I hope you find someone who sees you. Because you deserve that. You always did." That landed. Not as an insult. Not as manipulation. As truth. She left shortly after. No hugs. No tears. Just quiet understanding. 2 people standing in the aftermath of a fire they both contributed to, even if one of them lit the match. The road forward. It's been 5 months. The divorce is finalized. Clean. No drama. We sold the house. She moved to a different city. Last I heard, she's freelancing. Starting over. So am I. I took a job teaching art again. Not full-time, just a few community center classes on weekends. Turns out, helping people paint trees and oceans does something for your soul. I started running. Badly. My knees complain the whole time, but my mind clears. And I sleep better now. No more late nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if she's working late or lying to my face. And last week, I met someone. Nothing serious. Just coffee. But she laughed at my terrible jokes, asked questions that made me feel real again, and didn't once look at her phone while I talked. For now, that's enough. Final thought. You know what they don't tell you about being betrayed? It doesn't break you. It refines you, strips you down to the core of who you really are, and then asks, what are you going to do with this pain? Me? I turned it into peace. And I'm not just surviving. I'm living.